Hello everybody, welcome on in here to our user group webinar. My name is Jim. I'm coming to you live on a cloudy day here in Columbus, Ohio. Glad to have you here with me today where we're going to be talking about setting up pledges as well as campaigns in the donations module. We'll be going for about the next 20 minutes or so, so come on in, make yourself comfortable. Before we get started, a word about your GoToWebinar control panel that you've got on your screen there. There is a small red button, usually in the upper left-hand corner with an arrow on it that you can use when you click that to either minimize or maximize that control panel. Minimizing it is going to give you a little bit more room on your monitor here to see what we're talking about in our presentation here today. Maximizing it is going to give you access to the questions portion of that. So you can feel free to go ahead and type questions that you have as we go through our presentation here today, as long as it pertains to the pledges and campaigns portion of the donations module. I may or may not get to questions as we go through our presentation here today, but when I'm completed with the presentation, I'm going to leave the room open for a little while to take any questions that you have at that point. So the topic that we're going to be covering here today, if anybody out there has our regional training manuals that we make available, this is going to be, the presentation is from the manual, the donations manual D103, from pages 19 to 30 something, 31 or so. And that's kind of the materials I'll be using here for our presentation. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started and open up our donations module first. A nonprofit organization such as a church works a little bit differently than a for-profit organization in that folks who attend your church have the ability to contribute money voluntarily, and when they contribute that money, they can kind of tell you what they want you to do with it. And to help with budgeting, some churches set up what are called pledges or campaigns so that people can pledge a certain amount to a particular thing for a time period so that you can kind of plan your budgeting. It'll in church windows, setting up that pledge allows you to compare what has been pledged versus what has actually been given to give yourself kind of a good baseline for budgeting purposes and things along those lines. So getting access to the pledging portion, let me maximize that, of the donations module, you can get to it from two different places. First one, you can just click on this pledges link on our opening screen when you first launch donations. The other place you can get to it is on our accounts and pledges tab here along the top, and there's a pledges button that you'll see right there on that button bar when you get into that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our pledges and campaigns screen. I'm also going to maximize this. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to notice when we are on this screen is that there are two different tabs along the top of the screen. There's a campaign pledges tab right here and a pledges by giver tab right there. The campaign pledges tab is where we're going to spend the majority of our time here today. This is for a church who wants to set up a pledge campaign so that multiple people can support a specific project or fund. Okay, so this is open for anybody to pledge to as you go. You set it up, and then people can then choose to participate in that campaign or not. The pledges by giver tab there at the top is if there is an individual giver who wants to pledge to something specific. It's not the same thing where it's open to everyone to pledge to. That's kind of more of a personalized pledge from one individual. So we're going to be working with campaign pledges for the most part here today. And the other thing that happens with the when you enter pledges under campaign pledges versus pledges by giver is that you can report on a particular campaign here in donations. You can run various donations reports and show people participating in a particular campaign. But if you enter somebody's pledge under pledges by giver, that giving doesn't show up when you report on a particular campaign. So let's go ahead and talk about setting up a new campaign. There's three kind of parts here on this screen here. So at the very top, this dark gray area above this line is where you can see a list of all of your campaigns or create a new one. The section above this line, that lighter gray area, is kind of where you see the properties of a particular campaign. And then everything in the white area below that are specific givers and how they have pledged to a particular campaign. So when you're setting up a new campaign, you start in the dark gray area up at the top by clicking on. Well, before I do that, if I click on the down arrow here next to where it says campaign, it's going to show you a listing of all of the campaigns that you've got set up here in donations. If I expand this view, you'll see that they all have a title that you give to that campaign in this first column. They all apply to a particular giving account, and you see that giving account that appears in this second column. And then there's a date range that you set up. Because of the way donations works in that there's no particular end of year procedure, it doesn't parse out separate years in any particular way in donations. You can set up a campaign to go through any time period that you choose. It can be a single year. It can be across multiple years, the way you see this new 3-year campaign. At the top, it goes through 2016 through the end of 2018. Or it can even be partial year. Like for a month or 6 months, you can have shorter campaigns that you set up as well. So you see here for the 2007 year, we've got our General Fund 2017 already set up. But we're going to go ahead and create a brand new campaign from scratch here. And you can do that by clicking on that green plus button right there. I'll go ahead and set up a building fund campaign for the 2018 year. So we're going to go ahead and be able to invite people to participate in that campaign now, send out pledge cards early, assign people to that campaign that we're going to go ahead and get it started next year. When I click OK, you'll see that apply here at the top where it says campaign. Now we're working on that light gray area in the middle. We start with the account where we click on the down arrow and we see all of our giving accounts that we have set up in our system here. This one is going to be for our building fund. Then you've got your start date through your end date. So this can be really any dates that you choose. I'm going to go ahead and set this up for the 2018 year by clicking on my little arrow here next to the year. Takes me to January of 2018. And I'm going to do the same for December 31st of 2018. The next two fields are if you have a default either amount and or frequency that people when they pledge to it. So if it's a standard $10 a week campaign, sometimes you have campaigns where you have suggested ways that people can pledge to it. You can set up those default amounts there. They can be changed when you're adding individuals into that campaign at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and if I click on the down arrow for frequency, you'll see this when we're adding folks as well. But there's a flat frequency is going to be mostly used if you have a multi-year giving account. That's an amount that they have pledged by the end of that campaign. There's also an annual amount, so every year. Semi-annual is twice a year. Quarterly is 4 times a year, etc. on down the line for all of these. Once you've got all that set up and you're ready to rumble, you click your Add Givers button right here, and then that takes us down into that white area below where you actually add individual givers to that campaign. You send out your pledge cards, those pledge cards start coming back, and now you're ready to enter folks into the campaign for next year. Underneath where it says Giver here, you can find folks either by clicking on the down arrow and scrolling to find them in this way. You can sort it by giver number if you put a check mark here for giver number, and then it'll sort it in that way on here. It's also a search box, and you can search by number or by giver. So let's say we want to add giver number 15 to that, and that's Mr. and Mrs. Steve Murray. We select that name on here, and then you set up their pledging from here. Let's say they do want to pledge $15 a week. $15 per week, add giver to campaign. You'll see that plop down in the area down below where you're going to see the total amount pledged in this column, how many different sort of payments, I suppose, are due under the total number due there, and then it will calculate based on that for the total pledged. You can also search by name on here. So if the Oliver family is going to pledge as well, let's go ahead and select Jack. They're going to go $100 per quarter. Add that to the campaign. Okay, so you go through there for all of these individuals and how they want to pledge to this particular campaign. Okay. That is basically the way that is going to work. And you go through and you can have multiple people participate in that campaign from there. Okay. Now there's no save button that is necessary to use on here. Once you've added them down here to the campaign, they're in. You can adjust once they're already on this grid if somebody makes a change to the way their campaign works. You can update that. They got a new job, they're going to go ahead and go $150 quarterly. You can make that adjustment at any time on this screen. Some of the other things you can do here. Yeah, so that's basically that. Then, in terms of when we come back up here to the top and click on our down arrow for campaign, again, this is going to show us all of our campaigns. There's the one we're setting up for the 2018 year. You can edit or remove certain pledge information on here. So this goes back as long as you have campaigns set up in the system. So you see all the way back to 2011. We have some folks that have campaigns going back to, you know, the early 2000s and you know, so this can be a very long list. You can, if I select my old 2011 building fund on here, you can delete older campaigns by clicking on this little minus button right here. This right here. Now, when you do this, you're not deleting the giving into your church. But what you are doing is you're removing the old pledge information from the system. You cannot, if I were to delete this, roll my year back to 2011 and run comparisons of pledging versus giving back in 2011 because that campaign has been removed. So you want to be careful and make sure that you have all of your reports printed, and you're not going to want to go back and revisit that information if you're ever going to use that minus button. Again, this doesn't remove any of your actual giving from the system. You can also click your edit button to an old campaign on here as well. So if I select my general fund for 2017, again, you see it's for the 2017 year listed here. If you click your edit button, that's really just changing the name of that fund if you needed to adjust that. Okay. Let's say, for example, you can also use this copy campaign button right here. If you run the same campaign from year to year, and with the same properties for it. And let's say also, for example, the same folks tend to pledge year after year. You can copy the campaign. So if I wanted to set up my general fund campaign for the year 2018 at this time, I can use that feature. So if I select my general fund 2017 here, I can click my copy campaign button here, and it's going to have the same giving account with a new time period here. So I can create this as my general fund for 2018. I can review my dates here. Notice it's automatically setting me up for my 2018 year. And when I click OK, it creates a new general fund in 2018. So you'll see there's our general fund account. Here's our 2018 year for this campaign. And it brings the same givers forward for you into the 2018 year. This again is where it's going to be very useful to be able to edit this stuff. For folks who kind of do the same thing year after year, you don't have to do anything with them on here. If somebody moves away and doesn't want to participate, you can use the little minus button over here on the far right side in this column right here. So if I wanted to remove Molly White here at the bottom, I just click on my little minus button here to remove them. Oops. So I click my little minus button. Delete pledge for general fund. Donations for this pledge will not be linked to a pledge. That's basically if you already have giving linked to that fund. It's not going to be a problem now because we don't have any giving in the 2018 year any longer. And it removes their name from there. You can also make adjustments in here. Jake Knox, the Knox family is going to go with $750 quarterly. Or if somebody wants to change anything about the way their campaign, their pledge works, you can make those adjustments in there. Okay. Another thing that can happen, and I do want to show this because you can also adjust somebody's pledging midway through an actual campaign as well. So let's say, for example, let me find a good one here, monthly. Sue Sanders, let's use Sue right here as an example. Halfway through the year, here we are in May right now. Let's say starting in June, Sue wants to go, instead of going $100 a monthly, she wants to go to $150 monthly starting next month. Making changes like that is pretty easy because all you got to do is end this where it is now. So let's go to May 31st is where that's going to end. Then you can add her back in. Select Sue. Oh, hold on. How do I do this? Sorry, folks. Giver must be selected. And it should be adding her. My mistake, guys. Hold on. It selects her down here. Adding another line should just be a matter of... Let me come back to that in a moment. Sorry about that. But you can end their date on their campaign and then add another line. I am drawing a blank on how to do that. My mistake, guys. We do need to get to one more thing before we move forward. The pledges by giver tab along here at the top. Sorry about that, everyone. So pledges by giver is where you go if somebody has a specific pledge they want to make to your church, like individually. Let's say, for example, we have someone, let's select Carol Jane Ames here. She wants to contribute to, let's just say altar flowers, for example. She's going to buy the altar flowers for us on a weekly basis. So we go to the Pledges by Giver tab. This is not a formal campaign that we apply several people to here. It's just this one individual who wants to contribute this one thing. So we select our giving account on here, and we set up their date ranges on this screen. Let's start it at the beginning of next month because she just decided halfway through the year. Oops. Okay. She's going to say contribute 25 bucks a week to the flower campaign. So the little button over here, you click add, and it adds that campaign to her account right there. So that's adding an individual pledge as opposed to having it be a part of a formal campaign on there. Okay. All right, so that is what I have to show for you guys here today. If you don't want to watch me fumble around with this thing and figure out what I did wrong, feel free to go ahead and click on the X in the upper right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar control panel. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm also going to leave the room open for a little while for any questions that you have. So folks who are ready to get on with your day, thank you so much for joining me here today. So again, I'll leave it open for questions for now while I figure out what I did wrong to add her back in. Oh, that's right. You set it up here at the top. Okay. So you've got to, when you select their name from here, this is what I was messing up. You have to set up their pledge amount and their pledge frequency at the top. So if she wants to go from $100 a month to $150 a month, you need to set that up here at the top. It's always something simple. So you set that up here at the top, click Add Giver to Campaign. It gives you this information right here. And you can change this giver to start late or end early. And I can set this up to start at the beginning of June. And we were setting them up monthly. So there it will. Yeah, there she is right here, Sue Sanders. So starting at the beginning of June, now she's going to be at $150 a month. Sorry about that, folks. I just kind of spaced out on that. You do have to fill in the rest of the stuff at the top if you're going to make those changes. Let me take a look here. Okay, Mary has some very specific questions about a flowers campaign. Whoa. Okay, let's see. How do I make it calculate $20 for, say, 3 vases in the year? Well, you just kind of have to do the math. Whenever you're setting up somebody in a particular campaign, if it's an odd amount, like 3 times a year is not a frequency you can put into the program here. So in that case, you may want to set it up for $60 annually. If they're going to do something 3 times throughout the year, that totals out to a certain amount. You can set it up as annually with that amount. You know, you basically need to limit it to a particular pledge frequency. And then do the math and figure out the amount on that. If you have specific questions about that, feel free to give us a call into our support line, which is at 800-533-5227.